Alright, hello everyone, welcome to Bags and Omens. I'm Ryan, AM air pronouns. This is episode 15, The Emperor. Um, so, um, Not have my cards in order, whoops. Anyway, let's go ahead, dive into it. So, I've already recorded this once, sound wasn't working, so you missed out on a great rant near the end, but I'll try to redo it. But anyway, so first part of this card is its number, the numerology, of course. So the Emperor is card number 4 in the Major Arcana, and this is from my Favol Tarot, which shows I don't know, probably a 17th century dude with ruffled shirt and a little ruffled cravat and a red vest, standing on a stone balcony with a couple of gargoyles. In his castle, it's all very dark and gray and grim, except for even his color is a little gray and grim. And the reason, so the number 4, and with this card, and if you go back to the Four of Wands episode, you'll hear me talk even more about the number 4. But 4 is the center of the physical plane. It's key to orderliness, practicality, and organizing. It's the square. It's represented by the square, which is the basis of all practical construction. And the square also represents containment and regularity. So in this card, we have a lot of square. It's very ordered. It's like everything is kind of done 2 by 2. There's also a lot, not so much square shapes. Well, yeah, kind of square shapes, like all around him in his castle. It's practical, it's organized, it's kind of Spartan. People with a lot of 4s in their numerology birth chart tend to be patient and meticulous and also concrete and skeptical. And the more 4s you add on, and the more 4s you add on to the birth chart, the more earthy and they get, and it can lead into dogmatism, just because they're just like, well, that's just the way I've always done it, and they're very, and they can also get very bullheaded, like more and more as they go. On the flip side, if you don't have any 4s in your birth chart, can mean you're probably pretty impatient and you just want to go things, and you're not willing to sit there and write out the entire list of steps. You just want to do it all as one big step. So it's kind of number 4. The alchemy of the Emperor card is, so in alchemy, we've got the Fool, who's the alchemist, who's making his way through the journey. He went with the Magician, which is his power and his ability. The the High Priestess, which is his intuition, his emotion, his actual heart and guiding. The Empress, like I was speaking about last month, the Empress is kind of the workstation, the place where we actually go to do work. And then the Emperor, and we have our good tarot for this. The Emperor is the first phase of that work. That initial creation and creative energy, the essential vital energy needed to initiate, sustain, and complete the great work of alchemy. The Emperor is a representative of sulfur, which is the self-realizing power within everything, which is a representation of the self-realizing power within everything, because sulfur is the soul, I believe. So in the good tarot, our king here is kind of like a 15th century odd king with kind of plain clothes and a robe, but he's also got a lion's head with kind of a flower or crystal crown on his head that also flutters down into his cape. So he's very, he's also got armored gauntlets and a sword that he's holding. So again, we have that structure, that practicality, that rigidity, and it's like, but he's got that sort of, I'm ready to go. It's time to move. So in alchemy, the Emperor is the initiator. Okay, let's get started. Let's go. Let's get things done. Which leads us into the astrology of this card. because the Emperor is associated with the zodiac sign and the constellation of Aries, the ram, who was, the myth goes, the ram was actually the golden fleece from Jason on the Argonauts quest, that was placed in the sky after everything had done and over with. And Aries is, the constellation was named after the god Ares, the Greek god of war and, yeah, basically Greek god of war and destruction and chaos. And then, who in Rome was called Mars, and it wasn't so much chaos and destruction as it was conquering, and he was a lot more general-like, because the Greeks weren't too all about the brazenness. They liked Athena better. The Romans like Mars better, as opposed to Minerva. But Ares was the conqueror, the leader, the let's go out and do stuff, and Mars is actually associated with the tower in tarot. And Mars still lends his name to some of our English words, most specifically martial, like in martial law, martial arts, and such. And then, so in astrology, Aries is known as the leader of the pack. Aries people tend to be fearless, confident, courageous, completely in control. They're a little bit of control freak side, but I can't say much about it because I am too. Aries as a sign rules the head, and the Emperor especially likes to lead with his head as opposed to his heart. In traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, there's like a small amount of water right behind the Emperor, and in tarot, water usually means emotions, and so we know there's emotion, but if it's still, it's not very much, and then in some cards it's still, so it's like it's controlled emotion. It doesn't have much of a say. Aries tend to be forceful and blunt and direct, willful, stubborn, strong, rules through logic and reason. They can also be rigid and inflexible because they're like, this is my way or the highway. Bye. For them, their word is law. They're bold, brash, self-confident. They can outsmart, outmaneuver, and basically browbeat any opponent. Hard-headed. They're all business. Aries is also in the zodiac the cardinal fire sign. So cardinal means first, leading, the initiation. Fire, of course, is fire. They thing about Aries is they're also willing to sacrifice themselves. So the thing with the ram is, yes, it's bullheaded and stubborn and just forceful, but rams are also used as sacrifices, and the Emperor, the true leader, is willing to sacrifice themselves to protect their friends, their family, their people, basically. Their leaders of the pack. Aries is also the ruler of the first house in the birth chart, which is the house of self, and it's where astrologers look for how you come across in your first impressions and what your physical appearance even is, kind of a general tendency. So for the Hush Tarot that I have for this card, very interesting. So we have here kind of, it looks a bit like an old church steeple window, the big long ones with the kind of triangular head, and then there's the little Celtic four-leaf cross in the middle, and then it's kind of an arch and a rounded top, and then a very long window. So we've got that window, except for there's no glass in it, and instead it looks like it's kind of breaking apart, and it's also attached to turrets like you'd see kind of on a castle leading down. There's only a few turrets, and then just the towers or whatever themselves. Like, there's no rooms or bigness, and then, of course, there's a crow, which represents intelligence, freedom, wisdom, mockery, flying through the top of the window itself, like, and cawing, like, hey, look at me, follow me, let's go. Crows are power, intelligence, creativity, courage, flexibility, broad-mindedness, and mystery. Now, that already kind of throws us off a little bit with the Emperor, with tradition and rules and structure. What do you mean broad-mindedness? Well, why is there a crow, which means broad-mindedness, in the Emperor card? We'll get to that. So we have the crow, and then, of course, some of those turrets have actually a pair of hands through them. Not quite through them. It's more like the turrets are going through the palms of the hands themselves. And they're kind of like, ow, I'm in pain, and they're also breaking the turrets, but at the same time, the way they're cupped, they're also protecting the procession of mice underneath them. It's kind of procession of mice who are moving on from where they've been. They're following that crow. So yeah, so that's this card. Bring that out more later. Alright, so that's the astrology. The Kabbalah of this card. Oh, excuse me. So, for the Kabbalah of this card, we have my Archeon Tarot, which is rather dark. It's got a indigenous, I believe, Central American person on it, dressed up kind of Aztec or Mayan style. I don't know which it is, so I'm just going to go with indigenous. Kind of a black and white fluffy headdress over top, like a little short one, and then a very feathered robe, like big shoulders, and then kind of like a tunic with a sun motif on the front, and then of course there's kind of a see-through crow in front of that, and it's none of these are at all clear as to whether they're actually if it's actually like on this person's clothes or if it's just sitting there, because and you can't see it in the video camera, but that sun where it's cut out from the tunic, there's actually a little bit of a light over his skin, so it's like it might be being projected onto him. Excuse me. And then his face looks almost like a golden mask as opposed to an actual face. And then behind him we have like half a moon that's all kind of cut, crumbled up like a cookie. And it's only like half the moon. Needed water. Been talking too much. Excuse me. So again, we have that rulership here. And then in Kabbalah, the Emperor is the ruler of, or the tarot card is associated with path 15 on the Tree of Life. And the number 5, which is also associated with the Hebrew letter of Heh. And it's the path that goes in between the second Sephiroth of Chakma, which is wisdom, and the sixth Sephiroth of wow, Tiferet, which means beauty. So Chakma is full of potential, of creative energy, infinite expansion, dynamic, stimulator of the universe. Tiferet is the exact center, the place where energies above and below meet in harmony. The soul, the ego, the higher consciousness, the personality all come together, where divine consciousness and human consciousness can meet, like right in the middle. So basically, it's when we talk about talking to higher conscious, we're trying to raise ourselves. We talk about raising our vibes all the time, raising our vibrations, moving up levels, and just getting higher. Well, there's only so high we can go. At a certain point, divinity actually has to come down to us, and Tiferet is where they meet. Chakma is higher than Tiferet, and it's the wisdom, it's the potential. It's from Keter, it's the second Chakma, or it's the second Sephiroth. So the first one is Keter, which is the crown, which is divine consciousness, come into being. Because in Kabbalah, actual divine consciousness is outside of being. So Keter is where it comes into being. Chakma is the next one where it starts to have action, where stuff actually starts happening, where it initiates stuff. So Chakma is that wisdom. and then so the path in between that initiation, that wisdom is, and the harmony, the meeting of the minds, that path in between those is ruled by the emperor. So he is what helps that harmony and that beauty, that harmony, transcend into wisdom, and helps bring that wisdom down into harmony and beauty. So that's the Kabbalah. The Kabbalistic angel for this is Angel 42, Mikael, which means like unto God. He is virtue, which means he's the middle of the second tier of angels. His psalm is 121:7, and he rules over safe travel and monarchs, princes, and nobles, which basically just means rulers in general. He also uncovers conspiracies in all those who seek to destroy other persons and governments. And politicians. He's got the actual keywords for this card are political authority. So rulers, leaders, that's who he rules over. Because he's the sole guardian of those born from 1:40 to 2 p.m., the moral guardian of those born February 12th, April 30th, July 11th, September 21st, and December 2nd, and he is the physical guardian for those born October 11th to 15th. And those born under him will, air quotes, become involved in politics, be curious, and will want to learn the secrets of private affairs and private offices and foreign affairs, and will distinguish themselves in the kind of in affairs of state because of their knowledge of diplomacy. Basically, they're going to be such good diplomats they'll be able to distinguish themselves higher up. There's a lot of ways that could translate into, whether that be the leader of a government, a president, a prime minister, a dean, a college dean, a church leader, or a coven leader, or whatever have you. Basically, any ruler, he's kind of the protector of it. Someone who sees a behind-the-scenes deal that runs the show. Those born under him tend to fall into those categories, I suppose. At least that's what it says. Don't quote me on that, because I haven't actually looked into that. Ask the creator, who I forget the name of. So that was helpful. It's called the Angel Tarot. Yeah, so that's the angel. Now, the Spirit of Halloween Tarot being associated with the Emperor is the Great Sphinx of Giza. At least that's what I'm assuming. And it's pretty easy to see why, because this Sphinx is literally in the Sphinx of Giza's pose and bedecked out in the purple and gold of royalty. He's got his nose and his beard, the headdress with the cobra, and then above him, which is kind of hidden behind the frame of the card, which is a 4, and the 4 on it, is purple and gold wings, which from the look of them I assume are Isis's wings. And Isis, the great mother goddess of Egypt, is basically the mother of the kings. So she grants divine right of rulership to the kings. So that's why she's kind of above. He's also got this rod and staff, or whatever they're called, or flail. I think it's a flail. Rod and flail of kingship behind him. There's Egyptian glyphs all kind of floating around, and then a couple of pyramids, probably also the pyramids of Giza behind him on one side. And so, pretty obviously the Great Sphinx of Giza, which is one Sphinx we all think of. The other Sphinx we often think of is the Grecian Sphinx. And interesting thing I just found out, apparently a difference between Grecian and Egyptian Sphinxes are the Grecians all tend to be females, and the Egyptian ones all tend to be males. Interestingly enough. So, and we'll get back onto that a little bit. That will come up more too. So a sphinx is a mythical creature with the head of a human, a falcon, a cat, or a sheep, and the body of a lion with the wings of an eagle. I don't think the Sphinx of Giza has wings on it, but that's what they're supposed to have, basically. The Sphinx of Giza itself is generally thought to be a representation of the pharaoh Khafra, who was the pharaoh of the fourth dynasty of the Old Kingdom, and who built the second largest pyramid of Giza as well. That's what their thought is. Nobody knows for sure. There's a few things like this thing is the Sphinx and the pyramids of Giza are so old we can't ever 100% be sure unless somebody decides to invent time travel. Should be interesting. Now the reason I thought this was very interesting. Actually, the next part, we'll come back to that. So, the Sphinx was also for a short while associated with the solar deity Hor-Em-Akhet, which in English translates to Horus of the Horizon. So Horus was the great ruler of Egypt after his father Osiris was killed by his uncle Set, and his mother Isis basically went and collected, put her husband's body back together, had sex with it, got pregnant with Horus, gave birth to him. He was raised in the Nile, in the reeds, by a few different other deities, and then when he was old enough, he went and hunted down Set. They had a great battle, and he eventually defeated him. He defeated his uncle Set, and then became the new ruler of Egypt, while his father became the ruler of the underworld. Much better story than Hamlet. Hamlet's a dumbass. And also, in this case, the queen didn't get married to the usurper. So, it's not quite as stupid. Okay, I like Shakespeare. I swear. I do like Shakespeare. It's just, Hamlet's a dumbass. And I say that about a lot of characters, so... But, so we associate... So the association of of Horus of the Horizon with the Sphinx kind of again lends itself more towards that rulership, that that divine right of kingship and being in charge, I guess. Now, in contemporary names for the Sphinx itself, and I found this interesting because it kind of harkens back to the Grecian Sphinx. In modern Egyptian Arabic, the literal translation of their name for the Sphinx is, I'm sorry if I messed this up, Abu al-Hal, I think. I don't know Arabic. But its literal translation is the father of dread. And if you think about it, we all kind of associate the emperor with kind of that dreaded authority figure that's laying down the law and telling us, no, you cannot go play in that creek over there. No, you need to finish your schoolwork first. And so the father of dread, terrorness, which also kind of harkens back to the Grecian myth of the Sphinx who was terrorizing Lycia, I believe. No, that might have been somewhere else. Anyway, Sphinx was terrorizing a town. Grecian hero Oedipus came along, solved her riddle. She got pissed off, flew off screeching in the sky. And the reason for that is because the Grecian word for Sphinx actually translates to, can't remember the exact one, but it basically is also the word for strangle, or a strangler or something. So basically, because the Grecian Sphinx had a tendency to, if you got her riddle wrong, she would strangle you. It's like, she wasn't gonna, so they named her basically after that. So, Father of Dread, Strangler. It's very interesting how that comes up with the Sphinx, who is also associated here with rulership, kingship, the pharaoh, divine right, and the long tradition of ancient history, obviously, which all ties into more of the meaning of the emperor itself. So the emperor's Golden Dawn titles. Apparently there are Golden Dawn titles for all the cards. I did not know that. I should have looked at that book before. But anyway, and the major arcana all have 2 titles. So the titles for the emperor are Chief Among the Mighty, and son of morning, which harkens back to that Horus of the horizon. And for this, I have my Tarot of the Old Path. I'll just grab it here in a second. So, some of the keywords associated with the Emperor is professional and competent, with an underlayer of steel, little emotion, still dominating, authority and common sense, the father, my way or the highway. Inverted, some of the keywords are reckless, forget about safety, anarchy, bullies, racists, and egomaniacs. All talk, no substance, just general assholery. So, now, I know a few people, and I know a lot of people that kind of have issues with the Emperor because it's the father figure, and most people have a lot of trauma associated with their father figures, with their fathers in particular. And even those that don't, we have a collective trauma, especially in this time in the world, and especially in our culture here in the Western world, of the toxic masculinity, toxic patriarchy, the shadow side of all the patriarchy, which misogyny, racism, classism, sexism, yada yada yada, all the isms. Not to make light of it, I just didn't want to sit here and try to explain through all of it because I got more to say on the tarot than I do on that. But either way, because of all that trauma and everything that goes along with it, most of us can only see the shadow side of the Emperor, that inverted side. Specifically, it's really hard to recognize the authority of the Emperor without going, oh god, that's somebody who... Authority equals person I get in trouble with if I do something they don't like. That's what most of us see authority as. However, the Emperor is not that. The Emperor is not supposed to be that at all. The Emperor is creativity, it's initiation, it's not so much growth as it is expansion. And what I mean by, and yes, here in the Tarot of the Old Path, so we've got a full bunch of symbolism here. So even though in most tarot the Emperor tends to be a bit Spartan, here the Tarot of the Old Path likes to use all kinds of symbolism everywhere. So we're going to start with the background. We've got a clear sky with a bright sun, some mountains in the distance, or mountains or hills because they are green. So sun, bright shining light, clarity, basically clarity, shining a light on everything. The hills are obstacles, sturdiness, tend to be solid. We've got a castle here, kind of a top of a castle in the background, which again, home, structure, rigidity, safety, protection, and such. And then we've got woods and pastures all along, which is green growth, a little bit of mystery with the woods. The pastures are growth and fertility. We've got a couple of children frolicking here in the background amongst some flowers in the pastures. And even though that looks like a sheep, it's actually a person's tunic. So we've got two little, probably young kids frolicking there, and they're happy and safe. They feel safe enough to frolic in the pastures right in front of the castle while the Emperor's sitting in front of them. So obviously this is not a dangerous, scary, if you don't follow my codes, I'm going to kill you type deal. This is not that. That's all bright, happy sun, and that's just the background. So with that, and then we come to the foreground, which is our Emperor himself, seated on a wooden throne. So again, now, I had noted this before, it is a wooden throne, which stone we associate with cold, strength, hardness. Metal is very, very cold and authoritarian. Wood is homey. Wood is like, this is a solid structure, but it's homey, it's comfortable, that's somewhere you want to sit. At the top of it, we've got the top of it is carved into the shape of an eagle, which, majesty, vision, farsightedness, strength and power. And then underneath underneath that eagle, the body of the eagle is actually an Egyptian ankh. So we bring in a little bit of that Egyptian symbolism we kind of met in the Spirit of Halloween deck. So, and the reason for that is because the ankh is actually a symbol of rulership, of divine right over life and death. So this is the ultimate ruler type deal. And then our emperor, on his shoulder, he's got a falcon. And a falcon, I had it up here. The falcon is, hold on here, stands for victory, superiority, determination, loyalty, strength, and wisdom. And also, falcons, like other predatory birds, are very far-sighted. They see very far. I just said that like twice. And clear-sighted. So he again harkens back to the sun, and even Horus, the god of the sun, the ruler of Egypt, basically the original ruler of Egypt, or the second original ruler of Egypt, basically, is actually the falcon-headed god. So we again have that symbolism together of wisdom and strength. And now the king, or the emperor himself, is kind of seated with kind of laid back way. I mean, he's got one arm kind of held back and one leg stretched in front and the other arm kind of cocked at a 90-degree angle, like you're sitting, but he's kind of also leaning forward. He's pointing with his, well, he's not actually pointing with his staff. He's like holding it out in front of him, kind of looking at where he's holding it in his hand. So he's kind of got that thinking face of, where can I go now? What can I do now? What can I do next? He's dressed in rich red, red and yellow and or gold. His sleeves are those long sleeves that are also cut and tasseled, and because of the yellow dye, they look like flames. So again, that fire, that Aries, that cardinal fire of the sign. He's got embroidery all along his tunic, and then he's even got embroidery on his boots. And this is a dude who looks like he's from like the 1300s, like from the medieval times. And so it's not all Spartan because he's got unnecessary embroidery and flair. Even his cape, his robe, basically, is a giant fur-lined purple robe. And so he's got royalty in spades right here. And it's like beautiful royalty, again, with that wisdom, that foresight and knowledge, in that meeting in the middle between that and beauty and harmony. Now he does have a steel breastplate on because he is still hard. He's still cold. He's still got a core of steel. He's a very strong core. Basically, it's like you're not going to be able to walk all over him. He's not soft. He will give, but only if he wants to. Other than that, get out of his way, basically. It's like he's not going to run over you unless you force him to, but he's like, no, I'm not moving, you are. It's the person who's, what is that line? When the whole world tells you to move, stand up and say, no, you move. That's who the emperor is. He's the one who's like, I'm not moving for the world's moving for me. He's also, beside him, he's got a ram. Again, that symbolism of Aries, all right there. Very blatant. And also a symbol of fertility. Because the emperor is a creation as well. And then right here at the very front, we have purple irises. And purple irises denote wisdom and royalty, I believe. Let me see. Symbol of purple iris. Yeah, royalty and wisdom. So again, this guy's got royalty and wisdom in spades and fire. His entire outfit is all fire, plus the purple cape. But, so what I really wanted to talk about and what my biggest rant was, is while a lot of us, due to our trauma, collective trauma, see the emperor and authority as something dogmatic, something to be avoided, something to run away from, something that's going to uh, put us in trouble and punish us, and just basically it's like we don't like rules, we don't like structure because they're there to hold us down and keep us from growing or from being anything more. That's not who the emperor is. That's the shadow side of the emperor. It does exist within this card. That's the shadow side of him, is that dogmatic, you will not do anything unless I tell you you can. That is the shadow side. So we all know the shadow side of the emperor very, very well. I don't think I need to go over that much. What I really want to go over is the light side of the emperor, the healthy side of the emperor, that shadow transformed into what is the word? A superpower. Basically, the superpower, the superness of the emperor, the superpowers of the emperor. The emperor is very structured. He's a 4. He's structured. He's rigid. There's boundaries. Healthy boundaries are a very good thing. You need to be able to say no for your health and for others people's health. That's what the emperor encompasses. That's one of the things the emperor encompasses is boundaries. It's like, no, we can't go do this thing because we've already done this. It's like, no, you may not go get a slice of pie because you've already had 3 sandwiches and a slice of cake. You've already had 3 sandwiches and a slice of cake. You're already full. You're going to get sick. It's like, but of course we're all used to, no, you can't have pie. You already had cake. And it's like, but I want pie. It's like, if you eat that pie, you're probably going to get sick. So those boundaries are being able to say no. That those rules, those laws, that laying down of the law is for safety and protection. Of you don't want to end up sick. It's like, no, that place is the emperor is that space is off limit. That old mine is off limits because it's likely to collapse at any second. No, you can't go over to that field over there behind gates with the giant radiation warning sign on it. That's not a safe idea. The emperor is all about keeping his people safe, not so much contained as you may never leave, but as contained as in, it's dangerous out there, let me go take care of it first. The emperor is like, I have this kingdom, and we're creating and we're growing, but we don't have any more room to grow. So let me do my quick checklist of do we have enough people here to keep the home fires burning, keep things growing and all that. Okay, do we have enough soldiers? Do we have enough resources? Can we pay these soldiers? Can we pay their families can we pay all the people, the farmers and whatnot? Okay, those 3 things are good. Let's go. Let's go take this little kingdom and expand it. Let's go conquer the next one. The emperor is also a conqueror. He says, okay, let's go. Let's grow. The empress, as you might remember from last month if I talked about it correctly, or if I did talk about it, sorry. The empress grows things. The emperor is going to expand the borders. The empress is going to fill those borders. The empress is going to go, okay, we have a new kingdom. Yes, some stuff has been broken down because, that happens when you're conquering, is like you gotta go destroy the other king's castle, and you don't want to feed their armies, so you might take out some farms, but now with that conquered, and now we're expanded, the empress is going to come in and go, okay, sorry about this, here's some money to rebuild and regrow everything, and just send your portions to us instead of them because we kind of chopped off their heads. So the emperor expands, the empress fills. They have to work in tangent with each other. I just lost my train of thought. No, seriously, something just switched in my brain. Where was I going? Okay, so the emperor is, now the thing with that is, like I said, the emperor's got a checklist of 3 things. He's like, does this, and this work? Okay, good, let's go. However, that's not as structured as you might think. While he is very structured and he does think with his head first and lead, there's a reason the emperor has advisors, so they can sit there and go, whoa, we got this whole list of things to look at. He goes, okay, you look at it, tell me if there's any reason why it doesn't pan out correctly, and then let me know, and we'll go from there. The Emperor is not the meticulous, every little detail, dot your I's, cross your T's. The Emperor is just like, does it work? Can we do it? Is it safe? Will anybody get hurt? What is acceptable or not? What is acceptable loss? What is not? The Emperor's got also pretty firm ideas on what acceptable loss is, and they're usually more akin to Hufflepuff than Gryffindor losses. And I got that from a Tumblr post. I don't remember the author's name, but basically, whereas the Gryffindor is like, so long as it's right, any loss is acceptable. Hufflepuff will punch you in the face for even daring to suggest at least one person can die. So the king is that. Those are the two sides of the king. Is both that Hufflepuff and that Gryffindor kind of together. It's like one may be stronger than the other, but it's how it turns out is going to depend on the emperor and themselves. So again, the emperor is expansion. The emperor is warmth, is love and life, and keeping his people safe. So if you've ever, a good example of this is if you've ever watched, well, most any manga or anime series, honestly, most Japanese manga. One in particular I'm thinking of right off the top of my head, a couple of them actually, is either One Piece or Fairy Tail, because those are two that I absolutely adore. But the main protagonists of those two series, in One Piece is Luffy, who is a pirate captain, who his thing is, I'm going to be the pirate king. Period. End of discussion. I'm going for it. You going to join me or you're not going to join me? Now, he's a little bit more shadow side of the Emperor in that he is very reckless. He is just, actually both the ones I'm thinking of are kind of that shadow of recklessness of the Emperor that they're working to grow into their full Emperor abilities. So Luffy was very, very, very reckless in the beginning of the manga, but the most recent chapters, which it's still ongoing, and it's been going since like 1991, or something like that, which is awesome. But he has slowly grown and come into his emperorness where he's more like, will it work? Can we do it? Okay. He's out there protecting his crew. They are all important to him. He'll let them make their own mistakes. Don't get me wrong. He will definitely let that happen. But as soon as they ask him for help, he will step up and take care of everything. What he can, anyway. He did have to have a hard lesson at one point of, he's not all invincible and whatnot. But that helped him switch from this reckless, inverse emperor to a fully formed emperor who wants to protect his people, has rules, but he is still a pirate. He's still very reckless, and rules are really, really, really flexible. In Fairy Tail, Natsu was one of the main protagonists, and he's actually a fire dragon slayer. So he's very fiery, very reckless. He uses fire. He's a mage basically, and he uses fire, and he burns a lot of shit down. He's had to learn over the course of seasons to go from being charge, let's go do all the things, and oh, whoops, we just burnt down the entire town. My bad. To, okay, if I'm going to advance at all, I need to actually gain some skill to keep my powers under check, to actually have boundaries for myself, to say that there's some stuff I will not do and there's some stuff I really shouldn't do, so I won't. It's like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. It's like, the Emperor he's a master of that. He knows that very well. He is very much, yeah, you can do that, but you'll probably end up dead, so you probably shouldn't. Or somebody will end up dead, or what have you. He's cold and hard as seen by the symbolism of his breastplate on the outside, but he's very much, I want to protect people. He's very warm and loving. He's fire. He's not cold, hard, sharp. No, you can't have this. No, you can't do that. He's fire. He's very warm and growing and expanding. Fire doesn't really so much grow as it expands. It can get higher, but only if it's got enough fuel. And but fire more expands, and that's, again, like I said, fire, the Emperor is expansion. If that's one key word you take away from this entire freaking episode, if that's the one thing you remember that the Empress is growth and the Emperor is expansion. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff to it, but that's the main key word I really, really, really want to get across here, apparently. Is he expands. He rules and he leads with a firm, loving hand. And I don't mean that to sound like, I love you, so I'm going to give you a swat to teach you better. This is, I love you, and I don't want you to get hurt, so please do not ride your bike off of that ramp over that cliff. I'm going to take the ramp away and the bike, and you'll get them back when you're not so stupid. That is that firm, loving hand the actual firm, loving hand of, no, you will die if you do that. I know, I tried to do it once too. That's the Emperor's experience of, been there, done that, it's not a good idea, and I'm not going to let you do it. So that's the Emperor, and yeah, like I said, I really don't want to get into the shadow of it, because all of us know the shadow of the Emperor. We live in it every day. And I'd like it if we could transform more into the light side of the Emperor, the healed side of the Emperor of Patriarchy, where it's like, and I think we're working towards that. But anyway, basically everything I've been going over. So, oh, that was the other thing I wanted to, you know what, you can find pretty much that symbolism of, another thing with the Emperor with expanding, the reason I want to go back to this Hush Tarot is, these hands are protecting. They're holding the boundaries in place, but also because it's time to move on and go forward, they're also helping break them down and protecting their people, these mice, as they're moving forward from the crumbling old archetypes. It's like, we've laid the ground, we've been through this, now it's time to move on, we've got our groundwork. I mean, they're not leaving everything behind, there's still this procession of specific people, of flag bearers, heralds, and then these two are probably the rulers or the next generation of monarchs. And then, of course, we've got the peasants kind of, or the peasant mouse over here kind of looking over and seeing what's going on. So it's the same, so it's a structure. It's already structured, it's already built, but how it grew up here was very unstable, and this old stuff has to be torn down so they can move forward. But even as they're tearing down the old, they are still protected by the Emperor's love, basically by the old Emperor's love, I'd assume. So that, I wanted to bring that one up again. Yeah, and these two, the Hush Tarot and the Tarot of the Old Path, probably have the most symbolism out of all the cards. Like, even though the Spirit of Halloween is all kinds of stuff in it, it's still very singular. It's very much all about one thing, as opposed to these, which have a lot of symbolism you can get out of them in it. Could probably get a good deal of symbolism out of the Archeon as well. It's like, because of the way the moon and the sun are placed, he could be that bridge in between the two, and it's kind of a play towards the Sephiroth, but I wouldn't 100% count that. So, but yeah, not getting much out of the good tarot or the Favela tarot. It's pretty much just the Emperor dominating the entire scene, because that's what Emperors and Aries like to do. They dominate the scene. It's part of their nature. So yeah, that's what I got for you. A little bit shorter than the last one drew. Yeah, so like, comment, and subscribe here on YouTube. Follow me, yeah, if you subscribe and then hit the little notification bell so you get notifications when I post new videos. I mean, y'all know when they're posting anyway. But, yeah, if you want that reminder. Come find me on Facebook at Bags and Omens, where I post bags as I make tarot bags as I make them, and then my daily card draws from another page. And yeah, and then if you got any long questions or you want to get in contact with me for a tarot read or something, email me at bagsandnomens@gmail.com. And well, I hope y'all had a great holiday season these last few weeks, or if your holidays are still going on for the next week or so, I guess, because I had a great Christmas. Solstice was pretty chill. Yeah, Grand Conjunction's over with, and now I guess we're heading into it, and of course 2021's coming up, and I'm hopeful, but I'm worried. So, I think most of us are. Don't forget to yell Jumanji instead of Happy New Year. Because we need to end the game. But yeah, and I guess this is the last video of 2020, so yay, interesting. We'll see y'all next year, I guess. Bye, have fun, don't die.